Good evening. My name is Dimitrios Vlahakis, otherwise known as Jimmy the Greek Oracle. I am the person that wrote the book, Philosophical Conversations with God, only to be butchered and plagiarized by a bunch of professional parasites. The book is out of print, and I'm not here to sell my book. However, in the back of the book, I can read, depriving each other of wealth is a bad economic system. This was told to me by some entity or deity. I do deal with metaphysics since I was a little child, and I was told specifically that today's economic plan is inevitable. Economic disaster, that is. It is inevitable. Thus, I wrote letters to prominent politicians, President Reagan included, the Secretary of Agriculture, I believe was, a couple other senators and congressmen. I'm not exactly, I think I sent out about 10, 15 letters. The book itself was sent to President Clinton in 1992, although somehow the book ended up in the wrong hands, and I lost all the effort I made. I understand now it has resurfaced, and it's selling for a lot of money on the internet as a used copy. But I'm not here to sell or talk about my book. The reason why we have all these problems today is because we refuse to adhere to what I think are 4 basic principles. These principles can be applied to economics, to politics, to social behavior, or any other aspect of life. And they are, principle number 1 is fairness, justice, and then we have logic and necessity. Now, why do I embrace those 4 principles? Well, let's examine the situation, the financial situation today. For years, a few people made all the money, and all people made the rest, whatever is left of it. In other words, 1% or 2% made 80% of the money, and then the other 80% made 2% of the money. So clearly it's not fair, it's not just, it's not logical, and nor is it necessary. When money becomes the property of the few, everybody suffers. I predicted that, and I've written that, and I begged our politicians to put some limitations on greed. That obviously did not happen. What do I mean by limitations? What I asked back in the 90s, early 90s or late 80s to do is make sure that no one makes more than 10 times the median income. At that time, the median income was probably $30,000. The top salary would be $300,000. Whether you are a president or a peasant or a CEO or a sports figure, I don't care who you are, you only make 10 times the average income. So that is a form of distribution of wealth. But it also gives certain people that made more effort, use their own money, use their own expertise to make more money. I have no problem with that. I have no problem making more money. I just have a problem with people making all the money. That's my problem. Because I expected this calamity, I took time to think, what would I do when another depression takes over our economy? What our experts are going to do? Clearly, those guys that jump up and down on television and scream and yell, they're not going to do nothing. Our politicians, maybe some of them are willing to help, but they're also tied up and they're unable to. I'm sure they're open to different opinions and suggestions, but they also have a lot of baggages with them. They borrowed money, or they owe money, or they owe favors, or they feel that or they're not decisive enough. Whatever the situation, they're not going to get us out of the mess either. They'll take care first of the greedy ones, and that's the part that bothers me. It was the same greedy people that started the war in Vietnam and cost us 3 million people and $3 trillion, if not more. It's the same people that started the war in Iraq that cost tens of thousands of lives, many of them children, innocent people, but yet many of them made a lot of money. And these are the same people that will step on corpses to get ahead. And these are the people we have to put limitations on. Look, I'm the one that wrote years ago that you can go to the church and debate the issue of the devil, if you wish, with your priest or the other parishioners, but you have no right to dress up as a devil and walk into the church and say, well, here I am, I have the freedom to do anything I want, I'm covered by the First Amendment and all kinds of other garbage. The fact is, you can't do that, because the majority of the people in the church will not accept it. So, I understand the necessity of freedom of speech, but even freedom of speech has limitations, especially freedom of behavior. I'm not so inclined to put limitations of freedom of speech, because you can discuss things intellectually without any particular agenda. You can simply discuss things intellectually, and that's why I'm a little bit apprehensive when I say even freedom of speech has its limitations. But at some point, it does have its limitations. So how come we don't put limitations on greed? How come we don't put limitations on people that want to make $10 billion, $50 billion, $100 billion? What are they going to do? For every $1 billion they make, there are hundreds of thousands of people that have to be displaced economically. So how smart is that? Obviously it's not. If something happens to planet Earth, we're all in it together. If a meteorite threatens the planet here, are we going to call on sports figures? Are we going to call up on the billionaires? Are we going to call up on the CEOs to do anything about it? Of course not. We'll probably call up on people that make $70,000 a year or $100,000 a year, the scientists. They might give us an idea of what to do with it, or mathematicians, or whatever the other people are. They're going to resolve the problem, or at least we hope they will. So we're in it together. If the farmers tomorrow, they stop farming, within 45 days, everybody on this earth will die. I don't care how many billions of dollars you have, or how many billion dollars you own, you are useless. I know that because during World War II, people paid as much as $1 million for a loaf of bread, and they couldn't get it. So farmers is just as important as everybody else. And yet, President Reagan, with his baboon economics, put out 250,000 family farmers out of business. And that's why today we pay such high prices when we go to the grocery store. Because it all went to a few companies. A few companies now control our food supply. How stupid is that? Now, that's why there ought to be limitations. Limitations on greed, period. So, but this is probably not going to happen. I see already our government and Mr. Barack and Mr. Bush and everybody else has no idea or no plan whatsoever of what to do with this horrible situation. They don't, and they won't. So I decided to introduce my own economic or stimulus plan, which is based, again, on our own potential. It's based and is guaranteed by ourselves. I don't want the bankers to say, well, I gave so many loans out there and I lost so much money. You know, when it comes to credit cards, they lost about $5 billion a year, but they made about $180 billion a year. So don't tell me they lost money. Now, as far as the housing is concerned, they overdid it, but that's their fault, not mine. So what do we do now? The government is trying to bail the big money. I don't know, I think it's time to go back to this